Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. This episode will be discussing Pootie Tang, everybody's favorite film. You can't beat it. Starring Chris Rock, Robert Vaughn, J.B. Smoove. Really, it's an all-star cast. List goes on and on. Each week we talk about some movie, horror, comedy, action, adventure, science fiction. We don't discriminate. Although you probably won't see us do too many, anything too serious, anything too deep, anything too thought-provoking. Probably not Gandhi, for example. Although I'm sure it's a fine film. Actually, I know it's a fine film, from what I've heard. We pick these movies, we discuss them on the show, talk about the plot. We also talk about some hidden secret nuggets about each movie that maybe you don't know. I scoured the internet. My team of researchers, me, we have discovered all these interesting facts you may not know. So, there you go. Each week, I'll post on my page on Facebook, and you can watch the movie, whatever it is, streaming instantly on Netflix. Of course, you own the movie. You can also dust it off and pop it into your VHS or your Betamax and check it out. Be sure to send in your favorite quotes, favorite scenes, movie suggestions, thoughts on life, your diary, whatever. Send it to us on Twitter at KD9575. Also, don't forget to like our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club, and subscribe on YouTube, KD9575. Thank you very much. Pootie Tang in this story. Pootie Tang is a superhero, a crime fighter, a rapper. He's a pillar of the community. What separates Pootie Tang from everybody else on the street, you ask? Couple things. A, he speaks totally unintelligibly, using such words as Sarate, Sepatown, my damie, Sign Yo Pity on the runny kind. We can't understand him as the audience, but the people he talks to seem to understand him. I can't explain it. He also has a belt that gives him powers, I guess. He does not use knives or guns, nightsticks, pepper spray. He uses his belt. So, and not to mention his renowned ability of martial arts. So he'll fight the guys and then whip off his belt and whip them. So there you go. Unfortunately, this is a world controlled by corporations that tell us what TV shows to watch, what music to listen to, what fast food to eat. And Pootie, like I said, he's a pillar of the community. He encourages kids to go to school, listen to their parents, eat healthy foods. So they have to get rid of him. They need to find out the secret of his power and discredit him. So they send someone down to take care of him, Irene, who's, I don't know what she is, frankly. She's a crazy woman who manages to find out his secret. The secret to his power, like I said, it's his belt. She manages to steal the belt away from him. And they create an army of false Pootie Tangs, basically to promote their new fast food line of hamburgers and things like that. So there you go. I don't want to give everything away. You'll have to watch it on Netflix. And the surprise ending is shocking. Anyway, Pootie Tang. Some things you want to know about this. It stars Chris Rock, although he's not the lead. People think he's Pootie Tang. He is not. This is a character that was based upon a character that was on his show on HBO, the Chris Rock Show. He'd pop on every now and again. And again, speaking totally unintelligibly, dressing like a pimp from 1972. This movie's kind of a takeoff, a parody, if you will, of those kind of 70s black exploitation movies. Like I said, he's a character from the show who they said was too cool for words. And that's why he speaks in some kind of crazy language. The ladies love him. What we found out is that this crazy way of talking was created by Louis C.K., who's one of the writers and producers on Chris Rock's show. He's a famous comedian. He actually has his own show on FX called Louis. So he, that crazy talking is the way he used to talk for fun as a child growing up. So he's the one who was basically the driving force behind this. Not necessarily Chris Rock. Um, the actor who actually plays Pootie Tang, Lance Crowther, he actually says that he was a comedy writer who also wrote on Chris Rock's show, and he was kind of upset because he's like, I'm a funny guy in English. I mean, I don't want this one crazy role to define my career. Years later, he was having blinds installed in his house, and even the blind guy, was turning to him going, "Hey, sarate, my damie," and he's like, even now, years later, it's funny. Roger Ebert actually gave this half a star when it came out. He said this movie was not fit for release. Shockingly enough, Louis C.K., who was the writer and the director of the movie, agreed. He agreed. He said this movie was horrible. And the reason why, however, he says that he was fired during the editing process. They brought in a different editor who didn't do it the way Louis C.K. would have done it. In fact, they went back and added a voiceover track by J.B. Smoove, which, again, Louis C.K. not a big fan of. He felt like he never got final cut. This was not his movie. He's totally disavowed it. So originally, Pootie Tang was going to be called Pootie Tang in Sign Your Pity on the Runny Kind. Don't try to understand what that means. It's a nonsense phrase. It was going to be released by Paramount Classics, which was their independent wing. And the head of the company heard about it and said, you know, this might be a big hit, and actually gave them more money to make it. It was going to release it in regular theaters throughout the country. When the movie was finally shot, that same man called Louis C.K. into his office and yelled at him for wasting Paramount's money and not creating a movie that should be released to the general public. And I think about that time is when they fired him. So there you go. What else can I tell you about this movie? The AV Club, which is another site that reviews movies, talked about this movie as being audience abuse. Although years later, it became kind of a cult film, and someone else from that site came on and said, you know what, it's fun. It's silly, but it's fun. It's basically a one-joke movie over 80 minutes, but it's a funny joke. It's very silly. People hear the name Pootie Tang and they think it's some kind of perverse thing. It's really not. It's funny. It's funny in kind of a very juvenile, silly way. Originally, it was supposed to be like very much like a darker movie. Pootie Tang was supposed to be an armed vigilante with explicit sex, drugs, drug use, and violence. And the studio said, you know, make it a PG-13 movie. And that's when Louis C.K. rewrote it to be kind of, he's this hero who stands up for like virtues like going to school and doing your homework and eating vegetables and things like that. And he liked it better that way. I'm assuming up until the point that he saw the final cut, in which case he probably changed his mind on that as well. Some movie references. They actually, in Scary Movie 3, which is actually an underrated movie, there's a scene where they're making fun of The Ring about the killer videotape, and at one point they thought they thought that videotape was Pootie Tang. So there you go. I thought that was kind of funny. Also, Chris Rock guest hosted Tosh.0, and if you've ever seen that show, they do a lot of viral clips and make comments about it. And Chris Rock commented on how he could never be a regular host of that show, that he'd rather go and shoot Pootie Tang 2. Good times had by all. Like I said, it is very silly. The whole comedy comes from the fact that he hits people with his belt, and he speaks in this crazy, crazy language that people in the movie seem to understand him. Like I said, audience. But if you watch this movie, I defy you to not walk around and say, "Supper time, my damie," things like that. Sadly, it received only 29% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not for everybody, okay? If you're looking for The King's Speech, you're not going to find it on Pootie Tang. I know it's shocking to hear. Anyway, I highly recommend it. My buddy Tori was posting all his favorite lines on Facebook this week. I mentioned some of them, and it's hot too. Of course, sarate, many others like that. Go onto our page and you'll see literally we were rattling them off between the two of us over and over and over again. Can't beat it. Next week, I'm going to go back to the 80s. I'm going to go ahead and do an adventure movie that's near and dear to my heart. Steven actually recommended this to me last week. It's called Explorers, starring the late great River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke, who is still with us, but his career may be DOA. I don't know. Sorry there, Ethan. Anyway, check that out. It is streaming instantly on Netflix. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. Yeah, it's got Truckee, JB, Lacey, Dirty D, it's got Bad Bitty, Irene, Biggie Shorty, and Robert Vaughn. There it is. Thank you for joining us. Next week we'll be doing Explorers. Again, tell a friend. Be well.